Hello and welcome to Take a Beat. My name is Tirza and I'm the digital pastor here at IES. And this is Take a Beat, where we invite you to come and take a little break, chat with us, only to launch back on the beat. So today we have an interesting setup because we have a special guest that we have to I can't say fly in because she's not like physically here. We have Isabel Kenney, who is here with us from Newcastle, Washington. Hi, Isabel.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, I'm excited. And so, Isabel, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, because people know you here a lot based on who you're related to, but there's more to you than who you're related to. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, oh man. Hi, okay. My name is Isabel. I currently live in Newcastle, Washington, but I grew up in Indonesia and moved back to the United States for college. I got all of my degrees in some sort of organizational psychology, and so I love talking about how we can be better organized, how we can work better together, and how we can be better leaders. And I currently work at a very big state school in the state that I live in, and I work as a program coordinator, helping people with admissions and different things like that. Yeah, I think that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, so I know I know a few interesting facts about you, but where exactly were you born?
Oh, I am originally from Tangerang, Indonesia.
That's right.
Born in Lipo, Karawaci.
Yeah, you weren't raised there.
Yeah, not raised in Lipo, Karawaci. But...
All right, so this is Cindy Wijaya.
Hello, hi, Pastor Tirza.
Okay.
Maybe.
She was asking me earlier what to call me. I was like, call me what you normally call me. So tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Cindy. I've been in IES for about 16 or 17 years now. I think I started when I was in kids' church. That's how I met Isabel. Teens, that's how I met Pastor Tirza, and now I'm an adult. So yeah, and I think my background, like I'm starting a job actually in a tech startup company called Jump Cloud as account manager. So yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you.
When do you start?
In like few days.
Okay. So by the time this airs, you're official.
Yes.
All right. So today we wanted to talk about. Wait, what are we talking about? I got distracted by what we talked about previously. No, we're talking about managing or dealing with challenges in the workplace. Because one of the things that we've been talking about at church is this whole Change and Changing series, and we're covering also like being transformed in your vocation and how you work. And so I absolutely love these two ladies, and we have the best conversations pretty much about anything.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah, we don't shy away from talking about things, but we also have talked about interesting things about jobs. And so, like, just, chime in whenever. So let's start with this one. Like, how do you choose a job?
Good pay.
Do you want to expound on that?
I think, yeah, it's like jobs that are like have good pay and benefits. And I think ideally if you're looking, whether it's a first job or a second job or like, yeah, basically whichever job it is, you want it to be better. And I think having a good pay and good benefits would probably be the first factor that you take into account when picking a new job? Isabel?
I would say you should choose. I guess it's going kind of. It depends on your first or your second job or whatever job. And I think it depends if you have a calling to something as well. If you have a calling to something specific. But for me, when I went to go choose a job, what I tried to find was something that I was good at, but something that I also enjoyed doing. And so even though it wasn't necessarily something that I saw myself doing, it's like not my dream job. I don't think when you graduate college and you get your first job, it's your dream job. But I think as long as you get jobs that work your way up to your dream job, I think it's a good job.
Sorry, like I suddenly I was thinking, ooh, what's my dream job? What's your dream job? Do you have a dream job?
No, I think it changes over time, my dream jobs. But I think another factor that I take into account in selecting a job is the working arrangement, in terms of, do I have to go to an office? Do I have to take time to commute? Or do I have to be in the office only 2 to 3 days a week? Or, I think the choice that I do now for, my previous jobs are, I can work from anywhere. I don't have an office. I don't have a fixed base that I have to, spend time in. I can just work anywhere. And so, yeah, I think that working arrangement definitely is a factor that I take into account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a good question to ask. So, are you working like full in office, or are you working remotely, or are you working like hybrid for both of you?
I work hybrid.
Cindy's like,
I work hybrid. So I go into the office, I think 3 days a week, and then I work from home 2 days a week. And that seems to be a good balance for working with the people on my team, because some things do get done better when you're sitting in an office together. And some things can just be done when you're sitting at home alone. So I think it's a really good balance that I do hybrid. Also for my personality, I think it's better.
So I started laughing because at IES, you know this, we're serious about our faith, fun, and food. And I think the fun and food part is so much a part of the IES staff that for me, I don't plan to get a lot of things done when I go to the office, because it's either there's always snacks and things to munch on, or that there's always like people to talk to. I mean, meetings and things like that, but more interactions with people rather than like sitting down and actually doing work. I don't do sermon prep in the office. Does not work for me. Well, Cindy. Sorry.
I've been working remotely, I think, since COVID. I think 2020 onwards, I've been working remotely. I think, I've previously done the going to office 5 days a week kind of thing. And I think with COVID, with everything's changing and everything, I've shifted into working from home, and then just realized, okay, I'm quite productive. I would say more productive at home. So I think I decided okay, I think when I look for my next job and my current company, I'm asking, can I do work from home? Can I do working remotely? And I figured, I think for me, working remotely fits best out of the three options. So
Yeah, I have flashbacks to when I was working at a university in Kirkland, Washington, and I had to be at the office 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I was like, I'd rather not do that again. Okay, so there's always going to be conflicts in workplaces, and disagreements, or people that have different leadership styles or working styles than you. So how do you deal with conflicts in the workplace?
I think for me, so far, dealing with the workplaces that I'm in, I always have the opportunity to speak up. And so I guess I don't really see it as conflict. I see it more like, oh, brainstorming or things like that. Yeah, I think for me it's a bit rare, I guess, to have like a conflict. I think conflict is a little bit, I would say, the extreme side, but definitely a lot of disagreements, different personalities and stuff. And I think, yeah, I think just talking with, manager or like a colleague just to make sure that you guys are on the same page, there's no miscommunication. I would say that's a easy way to deal with conflict in the workplace.
Ooh, okay. I sometimes have a lot of conflict in my workplace. And my two very gracious friends often listen to very long voice notes about it. So thank you in advance. I think I work in a workplace where everyone is very different from me. And so I always feel like even if there's not really conflict, it's more emotional and more conflict than it needs to be. And so I think my mentality going into conflict, especially with my coworkers, is always to be more gracious. I think especially as a person who is a Christian, walking into a workplace that is not filled with Christians necessarily, I'm very conscious, and I always think about how I can show Jesus through my actions to the people here. And what if I'm the only person that they know that is a Christian? So whenever I'm in conflict, I always try to lead with trying to be gracious. And then I've also recently had to learn to walk the line at a certain point to learn how to stand up for myself. So I think I'm still trying to figure out how we deal with conflict in the workplace. But I think if you're always leading with graciousness, you're always looking for resolution of conflict, you're always willing to forgive somebody else, I think you are not going to end up in the wrong place.
I like that. And I totally think that's true too, that I don't think we were really like, oh, I know exactly how to deal with conflict. Because, for example, conflict when I was working in the States with this particular group of people, and then conflict like in a different place when I was on staff at a church in a different place in the States. It's different, and even though I feel like, oh, I've gotten the whole like conflict management thing in the workplace, and then we go to a different scenario, even a different season or a different group of people, and then the dynamic completely changes, and I'm like, oh, how do I deal with this? So, any thoughts?
I mean, it always happens. I think it's unavoidable, and yeah, I think I totally agree with what Isabel said. Being the bigger person, being extra gracious, especially dealing with a lot of people day to day. It can be a lot.
Let me ask this: how about because I think we're much more aware of how we act when maybe our coworkers or our clients or people we interact with at work are not Christians. They don't share the same faith or values. But what if they're Christians and then you can't stand them? Like, what do you do? What do you do then? Anyone?
So when I worked at a place where it was everyone who was a Christian, and I ran into work conflict, I had to approach it. I approach it the same, I think, as I do with people who are not Christians. When people do things that you perceive as bad, from their point of view, they're never doing something bad. And so if you start to think about other people as them always putting their best intention forward, even in a situation that you think they wronged you, they don't think that way. And I think it changes how you then perceive the conflict, and you can separate the conflict from the person. But when someone's a Christian, it's especially frustrating because it's like, oh, I feel like you should know better than to act this way.
Yes.
But I think it's like, we're all human. I have probably caused conflict in their life in a way that they're like, how are you a Christian? Because we just don't know how to read minds. And we just can't always understand what people are thinking.
But that's a good thing. I don't want to be able to read minds.
Yeah. It seems really tiring to read other people's minds.
Yeah, I can't even read my own mind sometimes.
Yeah.
Just saying. Okay, this one, like, knowing the three of us, all three of us have quit jobs at some point in our lives. So how do you come to that decision? Like, when do you know, like, when to, like, okay, this is enough, or it's, you know, because for me, like, I've quit jobs when it's like, oh, it's just a natural moving forward, or there's also like, oh, this is not an environment that fits with me. I probably shouldn't be here. So how about you? How do you come to those decisions when you like leave a certain position or a certain job?
I think for me, I usually split it in two buckets of like professional buckets, professional and personal. And so I think I've quit jobs where professionally, let's say the company is not doing well, and and maybe my role is stagnant, nothing's changed, things like that. And so that's when I take the opportunity, okay, I need a new job. That's one. Secondly, personal, I think it's the toxic environment, maybe a toxic manager, a toxic leader, and whatnot. So I've had that as well, where I had to take the decision where it's affecting me physically and mentally, and I was like, I don't think I want to be here. Yeah. I think that's when the decision that I took, okay, I can leave. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not tied to this job. I can always leave. Yeah. But I think for me, most of the time it's professional, for professional reasons. I think only one, it's personal. I think, I think that's how I categorize it.
Yeah. Isabel?
I have the tendency to hold on, and so I think for me, I've only ever quit from one position. And I think I think I cried every day for 2 weeks, like when I got home from work. And then I was like, okay, I need to stop. And then that's how I made the decision to leave. I don't recommend, don't let your jobs push you to your breaking point. Do not recommend, but, that's what I ended up doing.
Yeah, because what are the considerations? Because I think I'm the kind of person who wants to like make things work, for example, and also like from what we talked about earlier, being gracious. And I was like, okay, at what point is being gracious like not healthy for me? And so, like, what are some of your considerations? Both of you. I'm not just talking to one person.
Well, I think actually Flo really helped me a lot. At one point, she was like, "You need to leave. You really your job." Like, actually, she was like, "You can't be there anymore. It's not good for you." And I am a firm believer that, like, if people in your life are telling you that you shouldn't do something, you should stop doing it. So I think, like, Flo and a bunch of other people were like, that you need to be done with that. And so that's a consideration I took in. I took other people's point of view. But I think one thing I also did is I went back to my boss and things like that, and I asked for things I needed. So I asked for things I needed to be more successful, and they couldn't give it to me. And I think at that point, I think it was then very clear to them that I was leaving.
Yeah.
And I was just waiting for the next job to come open for me to then move. So I think that's where that like graciousness and like trying to figure it out comes in, is like, you don't have to like drop, peace and like leave if you don't like something. You can ask them to make it better first. And then if they do, then like great. And if they don't, then I think that's a good signal to move on.
Yeah. I think just to let people know that flow is me. Sorry. So I think we want to make that clear.
That's right. Sorry, my bad. Cindy.
No, I'm also like. So her actual name is Cindy.
My government name.
Government issued name. Yeah, sorry. So, wait, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, I was going to say, have someone like Cindy in your life where they're like, oh, you should leave, then you leave.
I think for me, I like to set boundaries up front. I think like when starting a new job, telling my manager like, hey, like these are the things that this is how I work. I like
nicely,
nicely, non-threatening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh hi, this is how I work. I also usually tell them like my off limits. Like, I don't want to work on weekends. I don't want to open my emails on weekends. Don't look for me on weekends. Or like, oh, if like
please look for me on weekends.
And like, oh, usually after, let's say, 8 p.m., I already clock out. So, I'll probably answer an email or answer a call the next day. I usually tell that kind of things up front. And yeah, usually because it's non-threatening, I just tell like, hey, this is how I work. And, I think this is what like suits me best. And kind of figure out in terms of like how my manager works and how we can, I would say, work together with our different styles. I think that's also a good way to like, okay, where to be gracious at, like, oh, where to compromise, and when it's like no go, off limits kind of thing.
That's actually a really interesting thing. Like, how do you communicate boundaries with coworkers or with even managers and your bosses? How do you do that? Because you're really good at communicating boundaries. Like, I can attest to that. You're really good. And, like, you don't have a problem saying no.
Yeah, I don't.
So, like, how do you, and Isabel, how do you communicate boundaries with, like, your, the people you work with, or even, yeah?
I am very thankful that my job is protected by law. And so there are boundaries that I would have set that the law demands in my job. So I'm really glad about that, there are some boundaries that I don't actually have to fight on. But I think generally when I have to set boundaries, I am very comfortable with disagreement. I do not need to agree with everyone all the time, and I am able to move forward if we don't agree. And so causing disagreement in a conversation where someone's trying to push on a boundary is not complicated at all for me. I just say no.
Yeah.
I think for me, oftentimes communicating the boundary initially is the hard part.
Yeah.
So I always try to, put it in writing, try to figure out like what I'm saying, make the boundary known to multiple people in multiple places. But then, make sure that boundaries don't mean anything if you don't enforce them. Yeah. And for me, that's often the most important part, is like doing the enforcing of it, because people always try to push on them.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on that? Pushing boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, when she says like being like able to say yes or no, I think there should be, I think you should be able to, in a way, like stand up for yourself, knowing that there are opportunities where you can actually say no. Not everything like is a yes. I think saying yes to like jobs and things like that, if your manager asks you to do this and you say yes, and that doesn't make you a good worker in a sense. I think someone told me the other day, like, oh, your yeses means nothing if you can't say no. And I'm just like, that's right.
You need to write that down.
Yeah, so I think it's like, I think just really able to speak up, I guess, would make it a lot easier. And whether it's setting boundaries, telling your manager like this, and things like that. I think that's a good start.
Don't contact me on weekends.
Don't contact me on weekends.
Okay, so talking about boundaries, it's even more probably difficult when you work with, for example, your friends or your family members. Like if you're, like I know several of my friends are in business with each other, and so I'm like, is that it? Okay? And so, or if you work with, someone in your family or a family member, someone you have a relationship outside of work with, and so how do you manage that, do you think?
I think for me, based on my experience, I've only had that instant one time. So
Was that a good idea or a bad idea?
I thought it was a good idea to work for a friend, and it didn't work out because apparently this person, who I thought my friend, is very different. It's very different when he's in work mode. So I think the lines kind of get blurred between seeing him as a friend and seeing him as a boss. And I just realized, I don't like this. This is a nightmare because it's very different.
Like
blurred lines. I was like, I thought he could bring that personality of, having him as a friend. I thought he'd bring that to work, but then I realized he's a totally different person at work. So I was just like, ooh, this is not great. Maybe this was not a good idea. But yeah, it was very short. I think I only worked less than a month because he started to threaten me.
Oh no!
I don't think anyone should threaten anyone, let alone your friend or your boss. So
or your employee.
Or your employee. So I was like, ooh, yeah, no, not a good idea. Let's not do that moving forward. But yeah, that's
especially
only one time.
on their first week of work. Do not threaten your employees during their first week of work.
I think that's when we're like, bad idea.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah.
But what do you think? Can you work with friends or family members?
I think as of right now, for me, no, not yet. But is there a possibility? Yes. But I wouldn't see, I don't think it's I don't think it's anytime soon. Yeah.
Oh. I think it depends on the person, and I also think it depends on your relationship. Okay, for example, it wasn't really a job, but the three of us have worked together on a project that we had to complete camp, things like that.
That was fun.
You're like, what are you talking about?
I blocked that out of my memory. No. For me, it's not work. When I'm working with the two of you.
Yeah. So that was I think those things are different, and they have, I think even then, Flo and I we were room adults to the same group.
You were going to say
and
moms,
when
right?
we just had to walk away from each other.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the relationship and what the job is, but I would generally say family, no, don't work with your family. If you can avoid it, because maybe you work in a family business, I don't know. Just because your relationship as family members is the most important relationship.
That's right.
And you can't let work get in the midst of that. And I think for friends, it just depends. Some friends you literally think exactly the same, and so you work really well together, and that makes a really good business, or you then make good choices. And some people you're like, I cannot take feedback from you because, I think this and this and this, and that would not be a good idea.
Yeah. In my experience, I've had friends where, it's not a good idea because it's just, it becomes too personal. But then I think I've worked with friends who it's not a good idea because we suddenly have no boundaries in terms of like, okay, even when we're not at work, we're talking about work. And I was like, hello, time out. Like, so yeah, I think I agree with you. I've never had a friend who was a boss threaten me before, so yeah, and I agree with Isabel where it's it really depends on your relationship. Okay, so what defines a healthy work relationship versus a toxic work relationship? We have established that threatening people is on the toxic relationship level. So, but what's a healthy environment to work in? Wow, I need more coffee.
Well, I think if you can stay sane, like physically and mentally, I think that's a good sign you're in a good work environment. Because I've seen lots of people, they overwork and then they go to the hospital, they get sick and things like that. And so I'm quite fortunate throughout my experience. I didn't. And yeah, I never got to the point where I have to sacrifice my health. So I would say that's a good indicator of. I think secondly, if like, you have like a great boss and like great colleagues, I think that really helps because you spend like 7 to 8 hours a day with these people every single weekday. So I think you want to work with someone who you enjoy the company of. Yeah, I think, and also just being able to separate your schedule with work and personal. I think it's good so you don't like consume yourself in work most of the time until you neglect hanging out with your friends or like talking to your family, things like that. I would say that's a good example of what a positive, good work environment looks like. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's spot on. I totally agree.
Yeah, like I'm waiting for her to bring out her organizational psychology stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay, you want to know? Okay,
Let's break it down. Bring it out.
Okay, I think the number one indicator. Whoa, big words all of a sudden, you guys. One of the number one big indicators of like a healthy and a good workplace is an enabling structure. Which is essentially what Flo really said. It's about having a good boss and a good team of people around you who support the work that you're doing, that you don't have to convince every day that you're worth it to be there.
That's right.
And so it's really about, do you feel that your workplace values you? And do you feel like that your workplace thinks that what you do is important? So I would say that's like one of the top things to look for in a healthy workplace. That's not always true. They say, for leadership, one of the indicators for really good leaders is that they will have had a really bad boss in the past. And it's kind of like, huh? You're a good leader if you've had a bad boss in the past. So, it depends on what you're going, what you're trying to look for.
Having severe flashbacks right now.
Well, one day you'll be really, really great because you'll have had a bad boss. So,
yes.
So I think it just, there are a whole lot of different things, but that's kind of the one that I always go to and is my favorite way to think about a positive work culture is to make sure that you have an enabling structure.
And I like that. In my experience, I've had 2 great bosses. One of them is Amy Jones, wherever you are. And the other one is my current boss. No, I think for me it's a lot of like them giving the opportunity for me to bring what I what I can to the table and appreciate what I bring to the table, and having space for me at the table. I think those are the things that are very important to me, and I think you know, Amy was my boss in college, and so I remember like, oh, like I think there's a part of me that assumed all bosses are like that, and then after that, I was still in the States and I had other jobs, and I was like, oh, not all bosses are like that. It's like praying for all of you, but you can do better. So yeah, that's my shout out to Amy. Thanks, Amy. All right, so last question before the team starts like shutting everything down, because I think we can talk forever.
Yep.
Well, Isabel will need to sleep at some point. So, how do you be a Christian in a work environment that might not be, you know, faith related, not be Christian? How do you be a Christian, a genuine Christian, I would say, without feeling like you're, you know, all salesy about it? Like, oh, have you met Jesus? Have you met Jesus? Yeah. So how do you bring in yourself and your faith to your workplace? Especially in some places, sorry. Especially in some places it's not legal to do so. Like,
I don't know.
Ooh. I think when you want to talk to the people that you work with about faith, especially in a place that you're not supposed to, I really start with prayer. And I really believe that God opens doors when you like for those things. And so I have been really purposefully praying for individuals that I work with in my office to get opportunities to talk to them and for them to then ask me about God, and about what I believe. Because I think only when their heart is open and softened that they'll hear what you are trying to say. And then in those moments, really letting the Holy Spirit kind of give you the words and the inspiration to say those things.
yeah.
And then the other way, I think, is to always just show up as a Christian would with your actions. You know, how are they ever going to see Jesus if they don't see Jesus through you?
That's right.
And so you need to actively be working to look more like Jesus, especially in your relationships and your interactions with those people that you want to share God with. And so for me, sometimes that's like, I have a lot of coworkers who went to like very strict Catholic school. And so they have a very specific understanding of what faith looks like.
Yeah.
And so often for me, it's been like trying to figure out how to explain certain things about our faith in terms that they will understand. And at the same time, not negate what they learned previously, to make it something that will hopefully they'll take in their hearts, and God will use it to soften their hearts and have them turn towards Him.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think an example of, I think I've kind of noticed this in my previous experience of how to be a Christian in the workplace. I think a very literal example that I could think of is, I think here in Indonesia, we have a lot of religious public holidays, especially when it comes to like the Christian holidays. There's Ascension, there's Good Friday and things like that, Christmas, you know. And I work with people that they don't have that as a public holiday. And so when it's my day off, and I usually tell the team like, hey, it's a public holiday in Indonesia, like I'll talk to you tomorrow. And the next day, you know, when I jump on a call with them, they'll usually ask, oh, how was your holiday? And I was like, oh, good. Like, I went to church because it's Ascension Day. And they're like, what?
What's that?
What's Ascension Day? And so I think that's an opportunity that I've took to, like, share a little bit, but not being too, like, salesy about it. And I think... yeah, at that time I think the curiosity is kind of like the open heart in a way, because they want to know what's that, right? So I think that's an easy example of what I've seen frequently, I guess, in my experience. And so, yeah, I think, I wish, right, there are conversations like that where it can happen. But I think that's a realistic example from my end.
No, I love both of what both of you were saying, because there's also the like how to talk to people about your faith, but also there's the living it out. Like when we are gracious and we choose to be gracious, we've talked about being gracious, and when we do our work well and we're excellent about it, we have a good attitude about it. I think that goes a long way. Any other thoughts or things to talk about before we end the podcast? Because I'm already getting flagged.
One strategy that Flo did, Cindy, did many years ago when she was working in London. I think she uploaded a Bible verse every day. I think it was while you were running. And with the people that were because they all followed you on social media. And I was like, and you told me that you were very, very intentionally posting every day, because then that might be the opportunity that those people get to encounter the Word of God.
Yeah.
So I think even something small like that is super huge, because you never know how that can help somebody.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, anyways, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I've always wanted Cindy to come, and Isabel, you were here last year, and so I wanted, let's be honest, I just really wanted to have you here in person. So when that happens, we're gonna make this happen, or maybe I just go there.
Take a Beat, Seattle edition.
That's right. Top of Space Needle. Well, thank you so much for being here. So come again, please.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Come again, please. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation. And if you would like to get to know more, just whoa, what was that? But you can contact us on social media or email us at takeabeat@ies.online. So we'll see you next week on Take a Beat.